It's Fully Threaded Radio, episode 223.
When you have to monitor your processes and actually pull and extract that data and figure out we're using 77,000 kilowatt hours in a month. Or megawatt hours, how am I turning that into, where it's coming from within my organization and within my building? So yeah, I fully believe that someday going to a technical college or going to college, for engineering, this regulatory type of engineering will be a degreed position. It'll be a degreed engineer. It'll have to be.
I think that we've had a reset, and it's certainly time to get back to manufacturing and getting back to a normal, albeit a new normal. But it's certainly time to move forward with everything that we've been through. So I think the 6-month outlook, I remain very optimistic that we're in store for a very, very good 2026.
I think you're giving Craig Penland a run for his money these days with your T-shirt now, Heidi.
I don't know. Don't start something, Eric.
It's time for Fully Threaded Radio.
It is Fully Threaded Radio, voice of the FCH sourcing network. If you buy, sell, manufacture, distribute threaded fasteners, or if you just find yourself dwelling on them frequently, well, this is the podcast for you. Hi everyone, Eric Dudas with you again, and the co-host of Fully Threaded Radio. This time is actually not with us. A little bit of an unusual episode today. Lifetime honorary Texan Brian Musker is actually gallivanting around North Africa, specifically Egypt. So he won't be joining us today on this episode 223 of Fully Threaded Radio. We'll be publishing on or about January 15th, 2026. First full episode of this podcast season. We got a special report out a couple days back, but this is the first full-length one, if you want to call it that. Actually, it'll be a little compressed without Brian, but we'll make do. So glad you clicked in. Got a text from Brian, actually, right before I turned the mic on here. He and Lynn apparently are right now touring the Temple of Horus in Egypt. As I understand it, that is about 60-some miles north of Luxor, and not the hotel next to the Vegas show, folks. This is the real deal they're walking around. Look forward to hearing all about that when they get back. I'm sure fasteners are the furthest thing from his mind right now. He needs the time off. But our feature segment on today's episode features another world traveler, as we'll hear. It's a conversation with Wi-Fi Woman of the Year, Darlene Collis. She's Vice President of Quality for the LinFast Solutions Group, and I talked to her after the announcement about her award, which was great news and very well deserved. And we cover a few subjects during this discussion, including her work on the standards committees and her role as CBAM specialist for LSG, plus a few off-topic areas as well, much like you'd expect. She's known as the Fastener Ninja. You'll find out why. On the Fastener News Report today, Mike McNulty is joined by Birmingham Fastener Vice President of OEM Services, Anthony Krall. Now, this is Anthony's first time to sit down with Mike to cover the FDI, and boy, he picked a doozy. If you've seen the numbers by now, you know what I'm talking about, and he hits it out of the park on this one. That's the Fastener News Report. Leading into the news today, we talk with Heidi Volltrauer with Volt Industrial Plastics. It's been far too long since we had her on the podcast. She'll update us on her travel schedule, among other things. She has a pretty big trip of her own coming up. Very exciting. And Carmen Vertullo has the Fastener Training Minute. He just returned from a bolting symposium on gasketed joints, and he's going to take a look at gasket stress. It's all coming your way. The title sponsors of Fully Threaded Radio are Star Stainless, Global Fasteners, and Brighton Best International. Fully Threaded Radio is also sponsored by Buckeye Fasteners, BTM Manufacturing, Eurolink Fastener Supply Service, Andrews International, Cressa, InSequel Software, Fastener Technology International, J. Franco, MW Components, Fastener Fair USA, Solution Industries, Volt Industrial Plastics, and Worth Industry USA. The email address over here is ftr@fullythreaded.com, and your comments are always welcome. Well, I'm zipping right along here, but I got to tell you, folks, there is a definite disturbance in the force as I record today. Even though it is a little unnatural to not have Brian around, there are bigger things going on. I had the whole episode planned out earlier around the big U.S. Supreme Court tariff announcement that was supposed to come. As I'm recording now, it was last week, but it was delayed, and I haven't been able to find any reason why. I can imagine there might be political reasons why the court is pushing it off. I have read reports that it's possible they're trying to kick the can forward, as they say, to the next session. There may be various reasons that they're doing that. I don't know. That's speculation. But practically speaking, the fastener industry is standing around tapping its toe. So I had a few folks lined up to give us some commentary on that, the reaction and so forth. But that's not going to happen on this episode. So we're going to jump right into the news segment after we play a couple of messages here. There's another big reason that it's an unusual time to be recording. And I got to tell you, overall, I'm in a pretty crappy mood over it. Just got my latest Link magazine in the mail, hot off the presses. And I have an unthreaded column in this one entitled, Why a Podcast About Screws Became a Conversation About Everything. Already received a few reactions to that. Thanks for the messages, folks. But as we ended the 2025 season with some sobering news, so we began 2026 because, as most of you know by now, we lost Leo Core, publisher of Link magazine, earlier this week, and it hurts. So I think we'll play a little bonus audio at the end of today's episode that I'll snip out of the podcast conversation I had with Leo back in June of 2025. If you missed that episode, go back and play it. It was wonderful. His personality really came through. He was a legend in the industry, just about ready to hit the age of 94 and going strong. We'll miss him a lot. So anyway, with all that, I decided let's just go with what we have and do the best we can. So that's what we're going to do. It's Fully Threaded Radio, folks. Appreciate you listening in, and I'll be back in a moment to put a wrench to this one with Heidi Volltrauer.
Brighton Best is proud to stand shoulder to shoulder with our trusted domestic partners, expanding our stainless offering with a full line of domestic ASTM F593 hex cap screws, 18 through 8, now in diameters from 1/4 inch to 7/8 inch, and lengths up to 7 inches. Tested, tried, and true, backed by American workmanship. These partnerships deliver quality you can trust, consistency you can count on, and domestic sourcing your customers will value. Brighton Best is investing in stainless and in the American manufacturers who help us keep our industry moving. Discover the strength of our domestic stainless lineup, including domestic stainless socket head cap screws, 18 through 8, and domestic stainless A2 hex cap screws. Brighton Best, your one-stop shop for all things stainless, powered by American partnership. We are Brighton Best International, Inc.
When precision matters, Gobel delivers. Our distributors and authorized dealers partner with us because they're done dealing with the usual headaches. Long lead times, unpredictable back orders, and inconsistent quality from low-cost providers. At Gobel, we don't play those games. We keep consistent stock, we ensure dependable delivery, and we back every order with real technical support that keeps your projects moving on schedule. Because when precision matters, Gobel delivers.
Stainless Dan here, coming to you from Star Stainless. From the beginning, Star has offered two major things to our customers. First, we stock a large diversified inventory of sizes, with inventory on hand so you can receive it right off the shelf. Second, we offer personal, friendly, efficient service from placing your order all the way to delivery. Star quality is more than products. It's simple. We're Star.
Hi, this is Kara Bossi from MW Components, your precision component supplier for fastener springs and other metal parts, and I'm talking to Eric on Fully Threaded Radio.
segment. A lot of people's favorite part of the Fully Threaded Radio podcast. It's become over the years. This time, Mike McNulty will be talking about the Fastener Distributor Index, along with Anthony Krall with Birmingham Fastener. It'll be his first time joining Mike. He picked a really good one, too. I don't know if you saw the numbers yet, but wow. Okay, we're going to get into it. Lots of stuff going on in the industry, but this time we are going to be joined by a familiar voice. She hasn't been on the podcast for a long time. Hey, Heidi, how are you?
Hey, Eric, I'm great. How are you doing?
Never better. Heidi Volltrauer with Volt Industrial Plastics. I'm going to put it at the top of this segment here. I usually save it for later, but since we have you with us, Volt's been a sponsor of the podcast for so long and focusing on the news segment. We really appreciate that. And, you know, last time I was down there, I think it was like 2021. You're down near Flippin, Arkansas, but that's a part of the world I don't get to often enough.
Most people don't, Eric. It's quite a challenge getting anywhere from here and people coming in because, you know, you fly into Springfield, Missouri or Little Rock, and then it's a drive from there. But it's a beautiful area.
It is in a lot of ways. I was wondering, do you get a lot of sales reps knocking on your door because of that? I would imagine you don't.
Well, you know, we used to, I think, more often in the past. We don't really have a lot of sales reps come by anymore. Yeah, that's a good question. Also, they don't approach me. And so I'm not the one that they're asking for anymore. So I might be out of the loop on that one.
Well, who would they ask for if not you?
Well, you're talking about sales reps in our industry, right?
Right.
This would be far out of their way just to be stopping by, you know.
I got it.
There's other sales reps that are repping materials and other things that come by, you know.
Well, that's why you need to do such a good job of getting out to all the shows and everything, which you do, and you get your name out there. I thanked you off the air for the amazing T-shirt that you came up with for the Vegas show last year. I think you're giving Craig Penland a run for his money these days with your T-shirt now, Heidi.
I don't know. Don't start something, Eric. Yeah, well, you're welcome. It was fun to have those T-shirts to hand out, and everyone at Volt has one. So we all love those T-shirts. They're fun to wear and they're comfortable. So.
And the guitar picks came in handy too, by the way.
Yeah. I don't play guitar, but for Nashville, that was. It's just a fun kind of theme, and all the other little things that we give out, you know, that kind of go with the theme. Harmonicas and fly swatter shaped like a guitar, and you know, silly things like that. But they're fun.
Well, they are fun. They get your name out. Volt Industrial Plastics is everywhere. We were talking earlier, and you told me that although you will be at Fastener Fair in May, which is happening in Charlotte this year, you personally won't be there.
I will not be at Fastener Fair this year.
Oh. I hope you have a good excuse for this.
Well, I do. I'm actually going to be in Europe. My uncle Herman has put together this trip for our family that we're going to a town in Austria. That's where our name originated. It's called Wölderau. We're going to be flying into Munich. We'll go through Innsbruck and then into Wölderau and visit that town and then back to Munich. So it's going to be a fun family vacation, kind of a once-in-a-lifetime trip with my family. So unfortunately, it fell on the dates of the show. So I won't be at Fastener Fair. And I was really looking forward to seeing Charlotte, North Carolina, and see everyone. Of course, I love going to the trade shows and seeing everyone and catching up with everyone, too. And it's kind of a fun business trip every time I go to the shows. But you'll see Pam, Jesse, and Chad there. So you need to still come by the booth, and we'll have some fun giveaways and come by and see what's new with Volt.
Okay, well, I know we will. Good for you for heading to Europe with your family to trace your family heritage. That is such a valuable experience if you can do it. My family did something similar. We went to Central Europe and went around the place and saw where everybody came from. And wow, I'm so glad that we did that. So how long will you be gone?
It's going to be 9 days, so not that long, especially for Europe. You know how that is. You get over there, you have to adjust to the time and jet lag and all that stuff. And by the time you're adjusted, it's just, I would have liked to have been there longer, but that's just not how this one's working out.
Of course. You got things to do back here, too.
Right, exactly.
So you were telling me that you have been to Vienna before, but not for a long time. When was it that you were there last?
I think it was like 2013. I can't believe that it's that long ago. It just doesn't seem like it. But yeah, it's been quite a while since I've been there. But we have family there, and then we have family in Rosenheim in Germany. So it was fun to get to see them and see. Vienna's beautiful. Oh my gosh, that is such a beautiful city. And I plan on going back at some point.
It is amazing.
I was just going to say, you said you've been there too, right?
I've been there a couple times. Last time was 2006.
Mm-hmm.
And I've talked to people who have been there more recently, and a lot of changes have taken place. I mean, let's face it, Europe overall is changing. So I'll be interested to compare notes with you next time I get down to I'm going to call it Flippin', just because that's the big metro center near you.
Yeah. I'm actually in Yellville, so that's a pretty big town to compete with Flippin'.
A bedroom community.
Yeah.
Getting back to that topic of operating in a small town or an out-of-the-way town, I'm sure that impacts your ability to pick up new help when you need it too. I mean, where do you recruit from?
Well, this community, there's a lot of people looking for jobs still. I mean, you would be surprised. There's not a lot of factories in this area, really. I mean, we have a boat manufacturer. There's Walmart and grocery stores and restaurants and things like that. So people are still looking for jobs. We're not hiring right now, but when we do need to hire, it's really not that hard for us to find people.
Wow, that's so interesting. So Ranger Boats is the big monster down there. And then they have a competitor too now, right? The offshoot, the Nexus guy. Is it Nexus?
It's Vexus.
Vexus.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. So Ranger Boats has always been a big company in this area.
You ever see Tabitha? She left the fastener industry. She was one of the rare. She'll probably be back, but now she's doing the graphics for, I think, Vexus and Ranger.
Okay, yeah, I know. I don't see her, but I know exactly who you're talking about. I've met her just a handful of times at different shows. So, but no, I haven't seen her. I'll tell her hello if I do.
I don't know if she gets down that way, but she listens to the podcast, I think. So maybe she'll.
Well, hello, Tabitha.
All right, we've got McNulty coming up in just a minute again with Anthony Kroll this time to go over the latest FDI. And we're talking with Heidi Volltrauer with Volt Industrial Plastics, makers of the world's finest plastic fasteners, longtime supporters of the podcast. The title sponsors of Fully Threaded Radio are Star Stainless, Global Fasteners, and Brighton Best International. Well, Heidi, I'm sorry that I won't see you in Charlotte this year, but I know you'll be in Phoenix later at that show, and we'll probably run into each other. Well, we'll see you at the MWFA at the latest, I guess. But there are some other things coming up. You never know.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be at Chicago and then Phoenix for sure, and Southwest Fastener. I'll be there too. So
I should have done this question at the very top, to take care of business first. Is there anything at the top of your list in terms of industrial plastic fasteners that the audience should know about right now? What do you got your eye on?
That's a good question, Eric. We have our eye on more business. I mean, I don't know. We add product every week, new products every week. We're making new tooling, adding to our website. So you can check it out on our website and see what we've added. Yeah, we're just, I'm curious to see how this year goes. Last year, things kind of slowed down towards the end for us, and things are taking off with a bang so far in January. So I will let you know how things are going the next time I see you.
Excellente. You know the website, folks, voltplastics.com. All right, Heidi. Well, it's been wonderful talking to you on the news segment, but there's one piece of business you need to take care of for me before you get out of here. You know what that is.
Hey, Eric, thanks for having me today. And now, with news about screws that you can use, here's Mike McNulty.
Thanks, Heidi. This is Mike McNulty from Fastener Technology International Magazine, bringing you the Fastener News Report, which is sponsored by Volt Industrial Plastics, makers of the world's finest plastic fasteners. The United States Customs and Border Patrol announced a record-breaking $200 billion in 2025 tariff revenue. Ford and GM gambled big on EVs and lost a combined $26 billion. And the Cleveland Browns football team fired its head coach for the 13th time in the 2000s. But I am still focused on fasteners and ready to deliver today's Fastener News Report. In this episode, Anthony Kroll, Vice President OEM Services at Birmingham Fastener, joins us to reveal the latest results of the Fastener Distributor Index, also known as the FDI. Also in today's broadcast, we have our top story from Stanley Black & Decker and Howmet Aerospace, plus newsmaker headlines from Slidematic, TFI, Gobel, Nefco, BBI, Wi-Fi, Fastenal, Routwasher, LSG, and more. On the back page report, we're going to talk about 2026. We'll get to all of that and the latest FDI results right after this.
Hi, this is Heidi Volltrauer with Volt Industrial Plastics. And there are 4 things that separate us from the rest. There is a difference: competitive pricing, fast lead times and delivery, no minimum quantity orders, and our customer service is above the rest. With a heritage of growth and hard work, Volt Industrial Plastics is committed to our customers and our future. You are valued. We take pride in our company and the products we manufacture. We welcome every opportunity to put our experience, technical expertise, and rapid response production capabilities to work for you. Contact a member of our friendly, knowledgeable sales team today to find out how we can help. You know the website, voltplastics.com. And come see us at Fastener Fair USA in Charlotte.
It's a bird. It's a plane. It's my offer from Eurolink.
You requested a fast turnaround, and Eurolink aims to please.
Does it include those metric fasteners that everyone else no-quoted me?
Certainly. As the premier U.S. distributor of DIN and ISO metric fasteners, Eurolink fulfills every quote they receive.
They even quoted the A480 stainless steel socket head cap screws. That's impossible.
Many of our dreams seem impossible, but when you email sales@eurolinkfss.com, they soon become inevitable. Eurolink provides fast, hassle-free quotes, fair pricing, and timely deliveries.
How fast can I get my orders shipped out to me?
Faster than a slow boat from China.
Thanks, Eurolink.
That's the Eurolink way. Hard to find metric fasteners delivered.
Mike McNulty.
The seasonally adjusted Fastener Distributor Index for December 2025 surged to 56.4 after posting a sluggish reading of 49.5 in November, seasonally adjusted. This was clearly the best FDI result of 2025. The forward-looking indicator, also known as the FLI, dropped to 51.2 after recording a robust 55.9 in November. Fastener Distributor Index data is collected and analyzed by the FCH Sourcing Network and Baird. The FDI seeks to identify demand, pricing, and outlook trends within the American fastener distribution industry. To get some insight on these results, we're going to talk to Anthony Kroll, Vice President OEM Services at Birmingham Fastener. Hi, Anthony. Thanks for joining us on the Fastener News Report.
Mike, good morning and Happy New Year. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Happy New Year. Glad to have you on here. This is your first time on the Fastener News Report.
It is.
Yeah, but you told me before we got on that you're a longtime listener, so you drew some good numbers. Let me say
Yeah, I certainly did. Mike, as you alluded to, what a strong finish to 2024. That 56.4 certainly stood out. But when I step back and look at the year, you could see a growing momentum January through December. I think as the tariffs started to come on, they certainly had a crest towards mid-year. I think there was a reset, so to speak, and the buying behavior, once they were able to regurgitate the tariffs and what they meant going forward, went from a more cautionary buying behavior to getting a little bit more loose with their orders, probably going from maybe more long-term agreements than the short, choppy spot buys, as we like to call them. So the FDI is certainly an indicator of that, and great momentum going into 2026.
Yeah, it was really a good finish. I was a little bit surprised, but it's not bad to get the best number of the FDI at the last month of the year.
Yeah. You know, Mike, I just looking at the patterns of the FDI quarter after quarter, you know, traditionally at the beginning of the quarter, the numbers started out lower, and then you could see the momentum towards the end of the quarter gaining momentum. So quarter by quarter, that was the trend, and certainly for the year, that was the trend. So just another piece of information or data point that I picked up going through the report.
Yeah, that's a good observation. So let's jump into some of the numbers. We have all the different categories of things, but this month it was almost a full sweep. We had sales, supplier deliveries, inventories, and pricing were all up, and only employment was down, but just down by a little bit. Anything jumping out to you there?
No, I think if we can just take sales, it certainly mirrored the trend of the FDI. Again, each quarter began maybe a little weaker and got stronger as the quarter came to a close. Certainly, that mirrored customer inventories, as you can see, quarter after quarter. Towards the beginning of the quarter, customer inventories were a little weak, and that progressively got stronger towards the end of the quarter. So, all in all, I'll use the word cautionary buying behavior a bunch. I think that the data certainly speaks to that behavior.
Well, that's a good phrase, cautionary buying behavior. You have to patent that or trademark it.
Yeah. If I can go one further, Mike, and just stepping back and looking at our industry as a whole, it certainly was an odd year. I've been doing this since June of 1990, so 35 long years, and I've never really experienced a year like we have. Or like we did in 2025. And I certainly think for our industry, it was a transition and a reset. Manufacturing certainly did slow, but it didn't stop or back up, so to speak. And our U.S. economy, via the GDP, I think we're up nearly 2 points year over year. So fastener distribution proved to be very resilient. More than I had anticipated for some markets. Some markets are traditionally flourish through feast or famine. And so we saw that last year. But I think the real story sits, Mike, in just the distortion between GDP, PMI, and FDI. Looking at the numbers for the PMI, traditionally under 50, not such a good number. But the FDI, again, gaining momentum to where we are now at 56.4, certainly leads to a good forward-looking indicator into 2026.
Yeah, you brought up, the PMI dropped to 47.9 versus 48.2 last month. And that was the 10th straight month below 50 and the worst of 2025 compared to the best FDI of 2025. So maybe we're doing something better than the broad manufacturing sector.
Yeah. Just an anomaly of a year. I would not be surprised, Mike, if next year we saw, in the quarter for 2026 Q1 that we saw the FDI numbers jump to the upper 50s, low 60s. I really feel that way, and momentum is certainly carrying us that direction. And speaking to many customers quarterly, we try to stay at the hip and navigate through this uncertainty. We're certainly getting forecasting for 2026, numbers like 10 to 25% over 2025. So again, That's what we're seeing. Again, a lot of that is market driven. Traditional markets such as heavy truck and the likes and ag certainly are slower than others, but even there, we're seeing just a small creep in the right direction.
Well, that's good to hear. Let's look at the 6-month outlook. And the numbers, they stayed pretty bullish. We had 51% expecting things to be better 6 months from now, 34% the same, and only 14 expecting it to be worse. And this is almost the same as we had last month, which was 52, 32, and 16. So pretty optimistic. We've got, well over 80% of the people expecting things to be better or the same as they are right now. What do you think?
Yeah, I certainly mirror that outlook. Again, I think we've been through the worst of it. I think that we've had a reset, and it's certainly time to get back to manufacturing and getting back to a normal, albeit a new normal. But it's certainly time to move forward with everything that we've been through. So yeah, I think the 6-month outlook, I remain very optimistic that we're in store for a very, very good 2026.
Well, that's definitely good to hear. I want to jump back on the PMI just for a moment. We have, the PMI that is posted in the report comes from ISM, and like I said, that they posted the worst of 2025 at the end of the year. But a couple episodes ago, we had one of the people who was on talking about another PMI indicator put out by S&P Global, and I took a look at their numbers, and they weren't great either. They had a 3-month low for the USA, 6-month low for Mexico, no change in Canada, and a 5-month low for the world. So I'm not sure where the pessimism's coming from there.
Again, I can speak from our customer base, and then also what I'm just hearing from my peers in the industry. There's a lot of inventory yet to burn through. So, and still, I'll use that word, cautionary buying behavior again. And so the data will turn into decisions. And I think after Q1, I would not be surprised to see those PMI numbers increase as confidence is restored.
Yeah, maybe they're both behind the fastener industry.
Yeah.
Good. Anything else you want to add on the FDI or the FLI before we jump into the respondent commentary, which was pretty voluminous? A lot of comments this time.
No, I remain to have a very optimistic outlook. And again, to be redundant, I'm very encouraged with the trend. Certainly very encouraged with the FLI and what we're seeing in the market. So I think we're in for a good 2026, and the worst of it is certainly past us.
Excellent. So let's jump into the comments. The commentary overall suggested a fairly strong year end for a lot of people and cautious optimism despite tariff headaches. So the first comment, you can jump in and weigh in on any of these comments as we go through them. The first one was, quote, "The limited number of business days in December was expected to restrict sales, and it did. No surprise. We will do what we can to make up for it in January," end quote.
Yeah, we certainly had a record-setting December, actually, and we didn't see that coming. If you look at the numbers in November, we sort of went backwards just a bit. So we certainly thought that December would mirror that trend, and it did not. So it was a pleasant surprise indeed.
Good. Well, that leads into the next few comments. We have one, quote, "The quarter ended on a record note," end quote. "Busy to the very end. That's a good thing." And then another one here says, "2025 was our best year to date. I expect the same type of activity in the new year," end quote.
Amen to that. Again, just coming from a place of sheer humility, we were very blessed to have another record year. Again, our markets are very diversified. Certainly in the OEM space, being spread out over the country, we're in several different markets. But our waterworks, our structural, we just had a phenomenal year. So again, the numbers could be a bit deceptive, looking at the PMI, but we certainly didn't back up, and we planned accordingly for 2026 to hopefully have just as good, if not better, of a year.
Well, it sounds like diversification is playing well for you guys.
Yeah, it certainly has been our lifeline.
All right, the next comment is, quote, "I remain cautiously optimistic in spite of the tariffs," end quote. There's our first mention of the tariffs. We got another one coming up. A couple of comments. "Customers are beginning to think they might have new jobs beginning late first quarter, where before they were nervous to commit." Yeah.
So to go on that last comment, and again, Mike, I'll go back to the FDI index. You heard me mention before that, the quarter would start out weak and then it would end stronger than it began. Well, if you look at the beginning month of the following quarter, those employment numbers actually spiked. So for May, 51.5, for September, 51.6, and so forth. So again, I think the data is the telltale, and with increased numbers, more confidence comes, and people are hiring.
That's always a good thing. All right, the next one is what I might categorize as the funniest and shortest tariff comment of the year. It was, quote, "Tariffs suck," end quote.
Yeah, I got a chuckle when I saw that, and I think that's a mic drop right there. Tariffs suck, but
that's a T-shirt.
It is, but
or a bumper sticker,
right? But for the foreseeable future, at least under this administration, and I think no matter which way we sway under the next, tariffs aren't going away. We may back up on the overall tariff percentage, but I think tariffs will certainly be a way of life going forward, and it doesn't make it any better. And well said by whoever responded to this. Tariffs indeed do suck. Yeah.
So we're just going to have to deal with them. So the next comment says, "Passing along round 2 of tariffs has been a challenge. Lead times have come down slightly. Many customer volumes have decreased, although it's masked revenue-wise due to inflationary tariffs and surcharges," end quote.
Yeah, that's a slippery slope. When we proactively presented the tariffs to many of our customers, It just depended on the market segment. We had customers that said, "Yep, bring them on. Just don't disrupt the supply chain." We had others that challenged the tariffs, challenged us to offshore from Asia domestically, and prices many times were inflated. They chose to go domestically, make smaller buys more frequently, and that certainly inflated the cost of goods. So again, it was tough to navigate through that. It was tough in some cases to gain confidence, for lack of a better word, and get the buyers from cautionary buying behavior onto having some confidence, trusting in essentially what we have going in the supply chain over from Asia, and moving forward with the strategy, accepting the tariffs.
All right, we got 3 more comments, and they all have tariffs in them. So here we go. Sales figures are up, but if we remove the tariff bump, I suspect they're flat or even lower than 2024 year-to-date. And the next one says, total confusion with the Custom and Border Patrol on tariff calculations has led to uncertain pricing. Importers are starting to receive letters advising them of miscalculations when the Custom and Border Patrol did virtually nothing to clarify the 232 rules. End quote.
Yeah, I mean, the tariffs, the 232 can all be a bit confusing. What we certainly did was educate ourselves really, really fast so we could have these intelligent conversations, for lack of a better word, with our customers. And, we reached out to the Scott Camps of Atlas and other importers that were really, really versed in the tariffs and brought ourselves up to speed. So I can see where the confusion certainly plays, especially, being a one of one for the industry to deal with. So I would just, my strong suggestion would just be to educate yourself as much as you can, so you get more and more comfortable with the tariffs, because they certainly aren't going anywhere soon.
Yeah, that's good advice. Get educated, be prepared, and just deal with them. All right, one more comment, and it goes up north, or comes up from up north in Canada. It says, Canada has hastily announced and will enforce a global 25% tariff on steel derivatives, and specifically all fasteners beginning in December, with the list only confirmed on December 12th. Without any real domestic sources for most parts, this will have a dramatic increase in prices, end quote.
Nothing to add to that. Yeah. Period. So
be careful what you wish for.
Exactly.
All right. Well, those are all the comments we have. So if have anything to summarize the comments, or you want to move on to let the listeners hear what's going on at Birmingham Fastener?
Sure. We can move on to what's going on here at Birmingham Fastener. So lots of expansion here at Birmingham Fastener. We are opening up our location in North Carolina in January. That will be geared towards structural and OEM primarily, some aerospace to a lesser degree. So we're very excited about that opening here in January. We are on the final leg of our expansion in Dallas, Texas. So we're just getting the office folks migrated over from the old building to the new, and we're looking forward to operating out of that building. We have a heavy emphasis this year on our Mexico operation in Querétaro. So we have a lot of OEM opportunities that are going on in that part of the world. So we're very excited about that. So overall, our optimism is very high. We've set an aggressive game plan and budgetary goal for the year. One of our slogans here, or core values, is grit. And we plan to do just that, just grind it out this year in hopes that it yields another record-breaking year. So that's what we have going on here at Birmingham Fastener.
Well, that's a good approach. I'm looking at your news page, and there's lots of over the last 3 years, lots of acquisitions and expansions and partnerships and that. So seems like it's a good place to be at Birmingham Fastener.
Yeah, we certainly, I started here July of 2019, and I think, in 2019, we opened Houston, Des Moines, Iowa, and Elmira, New York, and it's been hard to keep up with the acquisitions and new facilities opening ever since. It's certainly been a fun ride.
And I know your marketing people had to make some changes in the logos too, with all with all this stuff going on. So
Yeah, absolutely.
good job there.
It can be a little confusing. It's, we take on the name of whichever region we're in. So Iowa Fastener, New York Fastener. It's all a Birmingham Fastener company, Dallas Fastener, all a Birmingham Fastener company. But yeah, Brad Tinney likes it that way. We like it that way as well. It appeals regionally to the customer base.
Yeah, I think it's a good solution to maintain the longtime brands and integrate it with the Birmingham Fastener logo and brand. So good job, whoever's doing that.
Yeah, thank you.
Good. I also noticed I was looking at your LinkedIn profile, and it says you're a past president and past director at SEFA, the Southeastern Fastener Association. Can you tell us what's going on there?
Yeah, sure. So it was a pleasure to serve on the SEFA board for 10 years. I just recently rolled off last year. Nancy Rich is absolutely the best in the business, and it was an honor to serve on the board with her as our leader. Met a lot of great industry peers. It was just invaluable education, swapping best practices, and just the camaraderie, and just spreading the fastener knowledge around accordingly. It was just a pleasure.
Yeah, she's in the Hall of Fame, and she's got got a lot of experience in the industry and in the association. She also writes has a pretty regular column in the magazine, Fastener Technology International. You guys had your holiday event last December, and then you got your spring conference coming up in April.
Correct. And it's always fun. With the new board that's on, there's a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of engagement. And I'm just really looking forward to the SEFA board taking it to the next level. It's just a great organization to be a part of.
Good. Now, earlier you mentioned that this is your 35th year in the fastener industry.
Yeah, actually, I'll be starting year 36. Just a little mindless fact. I started on June 30th of 90, and that's a Saturday, Mike. So started at a little mom and pop fastener distributor in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, by the name of Larson and Company. And Larson and Company was acquired in 99, along with Iowa Industrial Products and the McElhans that owned Iowa Industrial Products.
Oh, yeah.
I got to befriend Casey and Ed, and just a great family to be involved with. And from there, I went on to Worth Service Supply, and eventually ended up here at Birmingham Fastener. Our vice president of sales, Rodney Holmes, gave me a call one day. I was on vacation. I was in the middle of Illinois, and he gave me a phone call and said, "Hey, would you be interested in coming to talk to us and the team here?" And what started out to just be a half-hour, 45-minute visit ended up being just an all-day visit. Brad Tinney and I sitting down and talking about the future of Birmingham Fastener and my contribution, and it just made sense to come over and join such a great team here. So it's been a pleasure going on my 6th year here at Birmingham Fastener and 36 years in the industry. It all goes by so fast.
No, that's a great career. And the other thing I noticed is that you've been in 3 states in the Southeast. It looks like Alabama, Tennessee, and Georgia, which has started out in the Midwest in Milwaukee. So.
Yeah.
So what can you tell a Midwest guy tell us about the Southeast?
Sure. So the Southeast was quite an adjustment. When I was at Larson and Company, we migrated Southeast. Briggs and Stratton was one of our larger OEM customers, and so I moved to Macon, Georgia, as a service point between the Statesboro and Auburn plant. Obviously, very warm weather, a lot of waves, a lot of slow days. But I've certainly gotten used to it, and I love the Southeast, and I can't see myself moving back to the Midwest, but just a wonderful place to visit. My wife is a Michigan native as well.
Okay, so you're both Midwestern.
That's right. Yeah. So we go back quite a bit. And
Big
as a matter
Ten country.
Oh yeah, she is. She's a diehard Michigan fan, and I, of course, am a Wisconsin Badger fan, as well as Georgia Bulldogs. So, yeah. So, but yeah, it's just it's been a joy to live in the Southeast for sure.
Well, now we have a new football star coming from the Midwest in Indiana.
Oh, it's been a joy to see. Absolutely. I think the NIL has certainly changed the landscape Alabama being such a powerhouse for all these years, and not to see them in the national championship game is an adjustment, but it certainly has been fun to watch.
Yeah. So we'll have to tell the listeners we're recording this before the national championship game, but I would say maybe both of us are going to be pulling for the Hoosiers.
Oh, absolutely. I am 100% pulling for the Hoosiers. What a great story, and that'd be a phenomenal finish. Absolutely. Be a phenomenal finish.
Good. Anything else you want to finish up with before we close it out?
No, Mike, thank you again for having me. I really appreciate it. Just wishing all the listeners out there a very prosperous 2026. Strap up. It's going to be one heck of a ride, and we're definitely looking forward to it. So again, thank you so much for having me on.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining us as your first time on, and we hope there's another time in the future. Did a good job.
All right. Thank you very much.
That was Anthony Kroll. He's the Vice President, OEM Services at Birmingham Fastener. The FDI number for December 2025 was 56.4 versus 49.5 in November 2025. Visit FDIsurvey.com to participate in the process and get a detailed PDF copy of Baird's monthly analysis. Now for today's top story. Stanley Black & Decker entered into a definitive agreement to sell its consolidated aerospace manufacturing business, also known as CAM, to Howmet Aerospace for $1.8 billion in cash. CAM provides critical fasteners, fittings, and other engineered components for the aerospace and defense industries. Chris Nelson, Stanley Black & Decker President and CEO, said, quote, "Divesting CAM reflects our ongoing dedication to enhancing shareholder value and focusing on growing our biggest brands and businesses. The proceeds from this transaction are expected to significantly reduce our debt, positioning us to achieve our target leverage ratio. After achieving this financial goal, we will have a greater flexibility to pursue additional value creation opportunities through a more agile capital allocation strategy," end quote. John C. Plant, the executive chairman and CEO of Howmet Aerospace, added, quote, "The acquisition of CAM is a major step in our strategy to build out our differentiated fastener portfolio. CAM's established brands, engineering prowess, and deep customer relationship are a perfect complement to our existing business. This transaction will allow us to better serve our aerospace and defense customers with a broader offering of mission-critical fastening solution, and it represents a compelling use of capital to drive value for our shareholders," end quote. Howmet expects CAM to generate 2026 revenue of about $485 to $495 million. The transaction is expected to close in the first half of 2026. Next up, today's Fastener Newsmaker headlines. In corporate news, Slidematic Precision Components celebrated a $7.9 million expansion. Threaded Fasteners, Inc., also known as TFI, acquired TSA Manufacturing. Grade 8 Supply acquired Bolt and Screw Supply. Gobel Fasteners named Advanced Components an authorized distributor. Nefco acquired STS Industrial. The Nordlock USA team won a Fastenal Supplier of the Year award. Optimus Solutions inaugurated a new office in India. Suncor Stainless launched a new line of patented swivel hoist rings. Brighton Best International, also known as BBI, congratulated Packer Fastener on being named the 2025 BBI Tested Tried and True Distributor of the Year. Clickbond acquired Brighton Science, and Supply Technologies announced plans to expand its North American distribution network with a new facility in Union, Ohio. In personnel news, Daniel Flornes will step out of his role as CEO of Fastenal on July 16, 2026, when Jeffrey Watts, Fastenal's current president and chief sales officer, will succeed him. Linfast Solution Groups, also known as LSG, promoted Stephanie Brandt to vice president, human resources. TriMas appointed Paul Stewart, CFO. Women in the fastener industry, also known as Wi-Fi, reported that Demarius Hernandez of Industrial Rivet and Emma Tylock of All Integrated Solutions received Joanne Sherman e-learning scholarships. Travis Albrandt joined Washer as plant manager at Diversified Tooling Innovations. Blackhawk Industrial appointed Steve Gettleman as vice president of category management, and Lehman's appointed Joe Sadowski as its new CEO. You can get details on all of these stories and more in the Fastener Technology International Magazine and the Fastener News Report monthly newsletter, both available online at fastenertech.com. Now let's turn to the back page to talk about 2026. The end and beginning of any year always have a good share of big picture essays, opinions, and commentaries in all levels and types of media. And if we agree that there is no year zero, then we are now in the first days of the second quarter of the 21st century, which implies a certain significance of the years 2025 and 2026. Fastener Technology International Magazine is not in the business of market forecasting and prognostication, but we observe trends and the ebbs and flows of industry activity. Looking back and ahead, we can point to tariffs, commodity price fluctuations, AI, data centers, electrification, labor scarcity, geopolitical tension, supply chain disruptions, inflation, and sustainability as the attention and energy-grabbing signposts. The economic experts are projecting general and industrial market expansion through the year at about 3 to 5% overall, and probably higher in some key areas like those just mentioned. But the standard and stable sectors that don't get headlines should not be overlooked. Uncertainty has become the norm, so it seems to me that the fastener industry veterans and newcomers should be ready for 2026's challenges and opportunities. In fact, despite all the distractions and noise, I think that one can conclude that it is an exciting time for people and companies to be involved in making, processing, selling, and using all types of fasteners. As we start the new year, which is already zooming ahead, I recall that it was just about 1 year ago that we heard Tim O'Keefe, the CEO of Hewitt, tell Fully Threaded Radio listeners that 2025 would be the best ever, and if they didn't believe it, they should retire or quit. So if you're listening to Fully Threaded Radio, then you probably didn't give up on the fastener industry. Let's simply update Tim's statement to read 2026 and consider another insightful thought that I heard this week, which is, quote, "Now is our time. We were not created for the past or the future, but for now," end quote. Here's to 2026 being the best year ever. This has been Mike McNulty of Fastener Technology International Magazine, bringing you the Fastener News Report. Please send your news, pictures, comments, corrections, or complaints to me at mcnulty@fastenertech.com.
From thousands of in-stock fasteners, including NAS and MS hardware, the custom parts built to your specifications, MW Components delivers. With U.S. manufacturing across 8 locations, we offer cold heading, precision machining, fully custom solutions, and engineering support for challenging applications. From rapid prototyping to full production, we deliver the capabilities and skill for your most demanding needs. Learn more at mwcomponents.com/fasteners.
Hey there, Fully Threaded Radio fans. We have been hearing a lot of tariff talks over the last couple of months. Put those concerns to rest with BTM Manufacturing, a domestic manufacturer of anchor bolts, single and double end studs, round and square band U-bolts, and much, much more. BTM Manufacturing, a commitment to service.
Hello, this is Marco Rodriguez from Cresa with your industrial real estate update. Today, I want to talk about the Great Industrial Reset. If you felt like you've been on the losing end of real estate negotiations for the last 5 years, I have great news. In 2026, the landlord party is officially over. We are seeing the national industrial vacancy rates hit between 7.5% and 8%. Keep in mind, anything over 8% is considered distressed, and this is the highest vacancy we've seen in over a decade. In markets that were once impossible to penetrate like Miami, we're seeing vacancies over 6%. Even New York availability is rising at the fastest pace in the country. For fastener distributors, this means you finally have the leverage to demand more than just a take-it-or-leave-it lease. In the Inland Empire of Southern California, vacancy has stabilized at 8%, but rent growth has actually turned negative for the first time in recent memory. Rents are down 4.5%. Meanwhile, in high-supply cities like Phoenix and Dallas, developers have been on a building spree. Phoenix added a staggering amount of inventory, pushing vacancies 10%. If you're a distributor looking to service the West Coast without the California price tag, Phoenix is effectively on sale. And the same goes for Dallas, where over 39 million square feet is currently under construction, keeping landlord pricing power in check. Market concessions are back. This means free rent and high tenant improvement allowances. Looking east, Atlanta and central New Jersey remain critical hubs for suppliers. But even here, the frenzy has cooled. Atlanta vacancy is hovering around 9%. While demand for Class A space is still healthy, vintage building, meaning those that are brick construction and maybe have lower 20-foot ceilings, like the ones many fastener companies have occupied for decades, are struggling. This is where the opportunity lies. In markets like New Jersey, there's been a flight to quality. This means many tenants are moving out of older, cramped facilities into newer, high-clearance buildings. And this is leaving a gap in the market for older buildings. If your business doesn't need 30 or 40-foot ceilings, you can negotiate incredibly aggressive deals on second-generation spaces in these prime corridors. As a business leader, what can you capitalize on? First, look for sublease spaces which offer tremendous value. These are spaces leased by companies that no longer need the space but are still locked in for a few more years. Not only can you get below market rents, but often these are fully plug-and-play warehouses, which means they're move-in ready and someone has already paid for the racking, which they'll leave behind. Secondly, and I say this all the time, don't wait for your lease to expire. With national asking rents finally moderating to around 1.5% to 2% rent growth, landlords are anxious to lock in creditworthy tenants. If you're a profitable distributor or importer, you are the gold standard tenant landlords want. Start your lease negotiation at least 18 to 24 months before your lease expires or renews. Whether you're in SoCal, Phoenix, or near the Port of Newark, the next 12 months represent the best opportunity in a decade to restructure your lease, downsize into a more efficient, high-cube facility, or finally secure the expansion space you've been putting off. Now is the time to use your leverage. If you want to talk nuts and bolts or roofs and walls, I'm Marco Rodriguez from Cresa. You can find me on LinkedIn or email me at mrodriguez@cresa.com. That's CRESA. Don't forget to pay your rent.
This is Jason Baines of J-Line Franco Fasteners, and you're listening to Fully Threaded Radio.
Segment time. First one of 2026. Well, this time it was very easy to make a selection on who I should invite on the podcast because we have the Woman of the Year. Wi-Fi made their announcement recently, and I was very glad to see this one. It's Darlene Collis with LinFast Solutions Group. She hasn't been on the podcast for a while, but she's here now. Hi, Darlene.
Hi, Eric. How are you?
I'm very well, and congratulations. I was thrilled to see your name when the big announcement came. Congratulations. What an honor.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It really is an honor. I was just so stunned when I got notification of that. Jen Kushner sent me a note and I was just floored. I was super excited for the recognition, especially with the group of ladies that are involved in this organization who have strength and history. So very honored, very, very honored.
We're the VP of Quality for LSG, and there's lots to talk about, and I want to get into this award and maybe talk about Wi-Fi a little bit too, but I'm dying to know. My memory says that last time we talked, I don't know if it was on the podcast or when we were speaking at one of the shows, you headed out to Disneyland, or is it Disney World, Tokyo. Did you finally make it out there? I know you're huge on Disney. What was that like if you made it?
Oh my gosh. We did go to Tokyo Disney.
Cool.
Yeah. Oh, it was incredible. It was so much like Disney World, with the exception of the language. Even going on the Haunted Mansion, that ride, it had the deep, James Earl Jones voice, but it was all in Japanese. And right. We were just cracking up. So it was fantastic. It's so fun to see the changes in cultures as you're going around the world. When I was in China in 2025, we were there in the April timeframe. And I really wanted to go to Shanghai Disney, but my colleagues told me that we couldn't go because there were like 8 million people there, and we have to go during the week the next time I come over there. So that's the plan, because I would like to get to Shanghai Disney now and Euro Disney. So those are my goals.
There are 5 of them?
Yeah. Yeah, I think, and there might even be another one. I got to look at that. I know that Euro Disney, that one is going to be probably a little tougher to get to. But Shanghai Disney, we actually drove by it, so I could see it. It just was too busy to get to. So next time, it's on the bucket list.
All right, you'll check that one off too, I'm quite sure. Well, good for you. And I've not been a huge Disney guy myself, but I have been to Epcot Center down in Florida. Did they have a connected theme park like the Tokyo one also, or was it a standalone? I mean, give us a little bit of a flavor for what that was actually like. Was it a standalone?
No, actually, there's two. It was like it was almost like the Islands of Adventure, and then the primary, almost like if you were going to Florida and you went to Magic Kingdom, then you'd have Hollywood Studios. It was very similar. So where you've got Epcot and Hollywood Studios, the 4 parks down in Disney, because Animal Kingdom, that's the other one. When you go to Tokyo, there's 2. So we only did the one time we were there. So if we ever got the chance to go back, we could go to the other park the next time.
And I'm sure the prices were on a par with what you see here as well, right?
It was way less, actually. You'd be surprised, like half the price of what we pay here in the U.S. to go. So that was kind of surprising.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like half the price.
Huh. And was it like 50-50 kids to adults, or what was the ratio? Because I've been reading recently a few stories about the huge number of adult Disney heads. I guess much like yourself, but Disneyland, the ratio of adults there to children is actually pretty surprising.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a lot of people. I mean, I know a lot of people that go because they'll go to the Food and Wine Festival, and they'll go to, when you go to Epcot, there's beers around the world, right? So that's not for the kids, that's for the adults. So there's a lot of us that like to go partake in that kind of thing.
Right. Well, very cool. All right. Well, the Wi-Fi group is pretty much, as far as I know, all adults, and they gave you the Woman of the Year award this year, and what an honor. You got the call from Jen, you said, and must feel good.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I was so again, just very grateful for the recognition, very humbled. I love this group of women. They do so many things when it comes to scholarships and mentoring and networking opportunities. There's always something to do, and they just have so many positive programs out there. These things are done free of charge. We get involved with a lot of different areas of the industry, which is a lot of fun to see. You've got some very strong women in that organization, which is it's nice to stand with this group of women.
I was looking back at the history of Woman of the Year. Pam Berry was the first recipient back in 2017 already. Hard to believe.
Oh, yeah. Wow. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun. Like I said, I feel very fortunate when that plaque came, it's sitting right next to me. Actually, I don't carry it around, but I want to.
Right. Well, we're going to put a picture of you with that plaque on the show notes for today's episode. People can take a look.
Excellent.
What should people know about Wi-Fi if they're listening and they want to get involved? I guess particularly the ladies in the audience.
Yeah. So basically, if you get on the Wi-Fi website, you can get on there, the Fastener Women, and there is a lot of places you can put in an application. One of our people at LSG just contacted me and said, how do I get involved in the mentoring program? So I had her go in and grab the application, fill out the mentee application, and submit it. Diana Barnes is in charge of the Wi-Fi mentoring program. So that's very exciting because she's got a lot of passion around that. We have several mentors within our organization that actually participate. And we do that kind of aside from the jobs that we already have. So being able to pour into the industry and bring other women up to the levels that we've been able to do that, it's really rewarding to be able to help in that way.
Excellente. FastenerWomen.com if you want to get more info on that or look up anything else that Wi-Fi is involved in. Of course, you can't miss their booth at any of the shows because... Put it this way, it's the pinkest booth on the floor every year, hands down.
Yeah. And there's a lot of energy in that booth. That's for sure. There's a lot of fun things and good conversations. And again, a lot of positive momentum there.
And giggling.
Yes. A lot of it's kind of what we do, right? We go in there and we have a good time. So we can work and have a good time, and it all comes together.
Right on. Okay, so Darlene, you are like a quality powerhouse. Everybody looks up to you, and you're involved on standards committees, and you're very knowledgeable on a range of subjects. And I want to give you a chance to talk about whatever is most important in that area right now. But I got to tell you, I was looking at your bio on LinkedIn before we turned on the recorder. We've talked many times in the past, but just kind of making sure I didn't overlook anything obvious. It's what hosts do. And I'm looking at the progression of the roles that you've had. So you were very strong in sales early on and quality also. But as it's gone, you've become more and more focused on the standards, or I don't know if it's focused, but you've become more and more adept at what you're doing. And my question is really, how have you been training yourself? Because you're not really a trained engineer, but you're in that role, you're in that world actually. And I'm very impressed by that because, again, a lot of people look up to you for being the go-to person in this area.
I've been very fortunate. So the people that I have been mentored by in my history have been very strong. Being involved in these standards organizations, I get to collaborate with some of the industry powerhouses like Lawrence Klaus, Carmen Vertullo, Salim Brahimi, not to name drop, but these guys, like I said, when you sit in these organizations and you listen to the things that they have to say, and you have interest in things like hydrogen embrittlement and the upkeeping of these standards, it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of knowledge, and it's really helped me enhance what I know in this industry. As you study these standards and you look to see where we can make improvements, or if we're just, reapproving them for continued use as is, all of those things have to be looked at. So as we go into these standards organizations, whether it be ASTM, ASME, IFI, SAE, ISO TC2 organizations, all of those standards need to be kept up. And so as I get to sit in these standards organizations with, again, these powerhouses that know so much and pour into our industry every day, I just feel very fortunate. I have learned a ton in doing exactly that. And that's where I've come up through the years, through my mentors in the industry as I was working in the organizations, and then getting to collaborate with all of those people on a regular basis is just a phenomenal thing. They're good resources to have. And Carmen specifically, when he does his Fastener Experts talk that he has, and it's a call that we have every 2 weeks, and we go through like real life issues and questions, and we talk about different products. It's just super helpful. Like I said, you don't always get that in other industries. Like that's one of the things that this industry is very good at, is mentoring.
Yeah, good point. And sharing.
Yes.
I remember, this is probably 2-3 years ago. I stopped off at the IFI because I knew an ASTM committee meeting was going on, and I wanted to experience one for myself, just sit in the background, of course. Mm-hmm. And I was so surprised because I knew Carmen would be there, and Lawrence and Salim, of course, and a lot of other people, but I didn't expect to see you for some reason. And there you were. And I remember it occurred to me as I sat there and observed, took it all in. It takes a special kind of person with kind of a certain tolerance for that kind of committee work. What would you say is the right temperament for somebody who might be dabbling with the idea of jumping into these standards committees? Because it's been brought up before. Carmen, Lawrence, they've both said to young people when I've asked them, make sure you ask us and we'll pave a way for you.
Yeah. So when you first when you first walk into the room to one of these standards organizations, and I've been involved in ASTM F16 for fasteners for 15 years, over 15 years now. So being involved in that group, I was the one that sat in the back corner and just listened and soaked it all in. Because when you go in there, the standards work can be a little bit overwhelming, but when you have these people that are willing to pour into you and work with you to become a bigger part of those organizations, there's, and just naming again, Carmen and Lawrence and Salim, there's John Metcalf and there's, Kevin Mankey, and you've got so many people in this organization that, Bill King being another one. These people all get in there and we put our interests aside for the best interest of the industry. And when we go in there, we try and make these standards make sense to everybody. Because when you and I are reading these standards and we're trying to understand what they mean, then, that's where we want to make sure that we bring some clarity to what they have to say. And we as fastener distributors and manufacturers and these standards are everything to us because it's our guide on how to make these properly. For example, one of the things that's been going on, we've been talking about F912 for socket set screws. I'll go do a little bit of a rant here, right? So
please do.
As we talk about F912, these are socket set screws, and they are intended for parts that are used in compression. There's been a lot of conversations recently about when somebody takes a socket set screw and they use it in tension. So F912, ASTM F912 is for socket set screws. And when you're using parts, when you take a set screw and you use it in tension instead of compression, it changes the application. It's no longer applicable to that standard. But if you're making a part and you're using a part to ASTM F912, these are 45 to 53 HRC. So they're high hardness Rockwell parts. And then you have to talk about, what if I plate these parts? Do I have to bake them?
I know where you're going. I know where you're going.
So if you have to bake these and you're talking about them being 45 to 53, in imperial standards, you'd be baking them for 24 hours. And the vendors are like, why? No, we don't have that kind of time. So technically, if you're using these in compression, no baking and no testing is required. But the standard doesn't necessarily say that today, but that's being changed. So right now, the F912 is in revision, and all of those things will be clarified in that new update that's going to be coming out. Kevin Mankey and myself and Bill King are all working on that right now.
Okay, that's a great example of some of the deep work that you're doing there. That's a kind of experience that you just don't get without experiencing it on a committee or something similar, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And actually, it came up because of questions from vendors and questions from customers. So, it's like, and then internally we're like, okay, these are 45 to 53, but they're used in compression. Do we have to bake them for 24 hours? Because according to ASTM F1941, we do. But when they're, this is just a different application because they're used in compression, which is a different animal. If you look at the ISO 4042, they put a disclaimer for socket set screws, parts used in compression, that they don't need to be baked and tested. But in ASTM, that's not there. So basically, we have to infer that because the ASTM F1941 says anything over 39 HRC needs to be baked for at least 14 hours. And when it's over 44, it has to be baked for 24. These parts are that, but they're not used in tension. So that's where that clarification is going to be made in the next revision of F912.
These meetings generally travel, right? They're not always at the IFI or in one particular location. So when you do participate, do you always have to go in person, or do you sometimes are you able to Zoom in?
You can Zoom in. Say most often there are hybrid meetings where you have some people that are participating online and some people that are in the room. I find it beneficial to be in the room. And the reason why is because you get that real interaction, even going to take the coffee break and talking about what we just talked about in that meeting. You get a little more interaction when you're doing that specifically. So I like to be there, but in the case, and if there's a case where you just can't for, again, you have a meeting, you have a medical appointment, you have kids to take care of, whatever it is, you can participate hybrid. It's nice here when we have the ASME meetings in Independence at the IFI because it's such a fantastic space. So now the ASME meetings are almost always held exclusively at the IFI and Independence. ASTM, when we go to May Committee Week, which is going to be coming up, in a few months, May Committee Week will be held in Dallas. And then, they go from place to place. So we actually travel around when it comes to, it's Jacksonville after that, I believe. I think we're going to Dallas in May, and then November Committee Week will be in Jackson.
So what's the frequency?
It is, so ASTM, F16 and B08 both, because I sit on those both committees. F16 is fasteners and B08 is inorganic coatings and metallic coatings. Those committee weeks are in May and then again in November every year.
Okay. Well, the main reason that I asked about that, Darlene, and I kind of knew the answer already, but for anybody who was listening and, again, toying with the idea of perhaps getting involved, which is a very good idea, both for individual development, but also for the betterment of the industry, it might help them to know that they could get in remotely if they're not sure about their particular organization would be able or willing to let them travel quite that much, at least initially. So when you're a powerhouse like yourself, you can call the shots a little bit more, but people starting out might be just the encouragement they need to jump in.
Yeah. And there's times that, like if you're just getting started and you want to see what it's like and that's how you want to participate is by sitting in a meeting and do it online. You have more opportunity to kind of sit back and listen to some of the interactions and get used to it before you start getting involved in committee seats and subcommittee chairman. Like I'm the subcommittee chair of B0810 and I am on the executive committee of both F16 and B08. So, you get involved and you can get involved in working groups and you can get, like if you have something to say about a particular standard, those are the things that you can actually start to kind of dip your toe in the water if you've got those kind of interests.
You have any background or exposure to Robert's rules of running a meeting?
Yes. And that's one of the things that I think I always find very structured about Toby Anderson, who has been our committee chairman for several years, many years. I think it's 6. So, because he is now going to be the past chairman's position because he has reached his tenure. With 3 renewals of a 2-year. But he was very big on Robert's rules. So he would always conduct the meetings and very respectfully, because that's the thing is, you have some people are very passionate about these standards when they come in and they have an agenda and they want to see something get fixed or improved. We just always handle things very respectfully, and that Robert's Rules of Order makes a difference when you're doing that.
Yeah, well, that's what it's designed to do. It's kind of funny watching on the news. I'm sure you see this too, but the way that the world's going these days with all these just ultra opinionated people who are sometimes a little out of control, and they're sitting there in these congressional meetings and the chairman just slamming the gavel and trying to get order again. I always remember my time in Toastmasters where I learned all about Robert's rules, and it's way more complicated than it seems, and you need a lot of discipline to follow it. But if you can really keep your meetings pretty productive.
Absolutely. And that's what it's all about, because we're all there to get, everybody is getting pulled out of their normal day-to-day activities to come to and do something in the best interest of the industry. So if we conduct ourselves, with that focus in mind and, respectful to everybody in the room, and we just get way more done.
All right. So much we could talk about with Stan. Anything else that's really coming our way that we should know about before we turn the subject? You're involved in so much.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is I know that there are some standards that are going to be, they'll hit the wire that people will be looking for in ISO TC2, the subcommittee 14 for coatings. There is revisions to the hot dip galvanizing standard underway for the ISO 106A4, and then also the ISO 15330, which is very interesting. Say the 15330 is the standard for hydrogen embrittlement, and it was always considered a the sustained load test for hydrogen embrittlement, but we're actually redefining the scope in terms of talking about this being for internal hydrogen embrittlement as opposed to external hydrogen embrittlement that happens in application. So those are the things is we're actually making some more, like kind of structuring the definitions between the two and understanding that the standard is for internal hydrogen embrittlement. So a lot of really interesting things going on. And again, these are the things that when you get more deeply involved in these standards, that's where that extra knowledge comes from. It forces you to learn more about those standards, which is where, I've been very fortunate to come up and be very involved in standards pretty much my entire time in this industry. So, these things force you into doing that. If you want to learn more about standards, get involved in a standards organization. It'll force you into it.
Right. And I don't necessarily want to turn the corner on this discussion, but that must be the same reason that you got pulled into the whole CBAM topic and became the local expert or the resident expert on that subject.
Yeah, CBAM is evolving, and it's very interesting because I know way more about it than I ever thought that I would need to.
Or wanted to.
Or wanted to, yes, exactly. But CBAM is so interesting because there was CBAM framework in the Green New Deal that when Trump took office, he killed. And now Sheldon Whitehouse has reintroduced this legislation in a new act. And being, like a Democrats' initiative, I don't know how much traction they'll get, but you've got other nations that are coming in with CBAM legislation. The UK is planning on going live with theirs. They have legislation in place and they're planning on going live in this time next year, January 2027. Taiwan is doing something similar. Canada is developing their own legislation. Of course, we have Sheldon Whitehouse here, who is actually proposing the CBAM legislation for the US. Honestly, if we had CBAM in the US, it would make life so much easier because when we go out, we're supposed to, in CBAM, you take your precursors, you make sure that any raw materials that you're using that are coming into your process have to be considered, the embedded emissions from that, and then any direct embedded emissions from production processing. So whether you're cutting, chamfering, threading, head stamping, heat treating, all of those things get added in. So if you're outsourcing any part of that, let's say heat treat, coatings, patching, we're supposed to actually embed those into our CBAM templates. And here in the US, if the secondary finishing applicators are not sending parts to Europe, they're not doing that. Because why would they? It's hard. So, when you have to monitor your processes and actually pull and extract that data and figure out we're using 77,000 kilowatt hours in a month. Or megawatt hours, how am I turning that into, where it's coming from within my organization and within my building? So I know that I've spent this much carbon emissions on this particular process, and then I add it into the next, to the next, to the next. So, yeah, I fully believe that someday going to a technical college or going to college, for engineering, this regulatory type of engineering will be a degreed position. It'll be a degreed engineer. It'll have to be.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Or they'll have some really specific LLMs that'll do the job for us.
Yep, for sure.
I mean, It's so complicated from what I've heard. Obviously, I don't have direct experience. Craig Penland was on the last episode. He gave us a little thumbnail about it. We talked quite a bit offline also. And the complexity there, I mean, it almost makes this whole calculating the derivatives tariffs look easy.
Yes.
It's just so, and the thing is, it's dealing with a massive fiction to begin with, in my opinion, which makes the whole thing another one of these issues that we have in the world today that just doesn't make a lot of sense. You're looking at something through a lens that's been foisted upon us, and it would be better if it all went away.
Yeah. And unfortunately, because it's such a strong initiative coming out of Europe, other countries are starting to pick it up because they don't know what else to do. So they're like, okay, we're going to do our own, with the UK being, Brexit, and they're doing their own thing, of course. So now you've got other countries that are actually jumping on that bandwagon to make sure they're keeping up.
Right.
And then you've got countries, you've got China, you've got Vietnam, India, Malaysia, all these other countries that are trying to figure out how to offset CBAM so that their products can be accepted without dramatic implications. These adjustments, these e-certificates that are going to have to be surrendered when their parts end up in Europe. So those are the things that there's a lot of worldwide initiative going on about CBAM. So it's quite the topic, that's for sure.
Yeah, it's not going to be going away. Well, you'll be on the podcast again, Darlene.
Hopefully I'll have good updates for you as this thing evolves, because I'll be curious to see, with the pressures, even though it's the Democrats that are kind of proposing this new legislation to pick it up, the CBAM framework that was already there, and push it in to the U.S. industry. I'll be curious to see what kind of pressures, if it does take a new administration to pick it up, or, does it get picked up in advance of that because there's so much momentum behind it worldwide. Time will tell.
Yeah, I get it. And I see why you are attributing it as more of a Democrat initiative these days, which is accurate. But in actuality, both sides are really accepting it as inevitable. They're just arguing about how they're going to do it, which is the real pity in all this. We don't have any real representation that's on the side of truth and validity, in my opinion. So it's another one of these things we're looking at in the world and saying, why are we doing this?
Yeah, and it's definitely bipartisan, but primarily, like I said, you've got two Democratic senators who have proposed it again, where it got kind of squashed in the Green New Deal. They just kind of picked it up and reintroduced it as new legislation. So we'll see where it goes. Because there is some bipartisan support. It makes sense, and we don't want to be held at a disadvantage, because that's what the whole CBAM is they're comparing. Europe says we have lofty carbon goals where others don't. So we don't want to be held at a disadvantage. And if you make parts outside of Europe and ship them in, you're going to pay the difference. So you're going to level the playing field for us so that we don't get put at a disadvantage because of our lofty carbon reduction goals.
Yeah, funny how all this playing field leveling is going across the board, isn't it?
Yes, very interesting.
Well, just to offset all this, I'm going to have Charlie Kerr on in the near future to blow this whole discussion out of the water for us, Be a good palate cleanser.
Exactly.
Well, LSG is doing lots of exciting things that, regardless of what's going on in the background, they're making a lot of people take notice. I'm sure you've got a bunch of them to lay out for us. What's at the top of your list?
So I'll start with Wi-Fi, of course, because we've got so much positive momentum. We have so many incredibly talented, strong women in our organization that are joining and being promoted within LSG. Of course, we have our veteran Steph Brandt, who was named VP of HR. We've got Rosa Hearn, who is our Vice President of Marketing, Diane Markey, our Senior Director of Program Management. Heather Skiba joined our organization, Senior Vice President of Operations, Jess Proctor in Project Management. I could go on and on. Janice Lopez of Stelfast is now a board member of the Southwest Fastener Association. I joined Wi-Fi, of course, so the Wi-Fi board. So a lot of exciting momentum behind, women in the fastener industry, which is really exciting within our organization.
Cool.
Yeah. So that's one thing. In terms of other initiatives, of course, we're going to be doing monthly webinars to highlight LSG and its divisions, showcase our experts, and highlight how partnerships work across our divisions. Brian Wheeler, of course, today is going to be has the stainless talk, the webinar today. And then in February, Randy Hardlichka from Lindstrom Purchasing, will be highlighting Lindstrom Fasteners and sharing metric insights. I was excited that I'll be doing that in September for finishes and secondary processing, because that's my area of expertise. So that's going to be really exciting to have those monthly webinars that we can actually put out into the industry and people can join and listen in.
Very cool. And I know Rosa, as you said, is at the helm of amplifying all these messages. So I'm expecting we're going to see some announcements of all this on LinkedIn and other platforms. Can people get on mailing lists for all this too, I expect?
Absolutely. Yes. And that's where Rosa is heading all of that up. So she'll be blasting that out on social media to let people know when those webinars are scheduled so that people can register and join.
So we're seeing LSG really pick up momentum. A lot of key people have come on board and lots of progress is being made. A lot of facility consolidation too, I noticed during the last year.
Absolutely. So that's one of the things that's, as a benefit when we do those consolidations, of course, it's kind of a one-stop shop. People can stop and they're going to pick up products that they bought from Lindstrom, Stelfast, Star Stainless. We've got Metallurgent in Elgin and also in Strongsville, Ohio, where they can do testing and inspection reports, PPAP packages for people, Category 3 inspection upgrades, all of those different things. So we have a lot of momentum through that consolidation.
Now, I have to ask, because it's really a tradition on the podcast to spend time considering what's coming down the road with the Stelfast monkey, now the LSG monkey, all restylized, I should add, for the new entity. And
Yes.
So we always had fun trying to guess the color. And I think Simi was really the one who would ultimately pick it out in the old days, when it first started. But I don't know how all that works now. Is that a topic around the water cooler over there at LSG?
So it always is, because people always look to see what's the monkey going to be like this year. And I gave Dana a hard time because last year that monkey had big ears. He was just big ears. And so it's always fun because Dana keeps it very close to the vest. We never know until we get there what it's going to look like. So I thought I was going to get an insight because of one of our vendors when Jim Jordan and I were offshore. I thought we were going to be able to see what this monkey is going to look like, but they wouldn't give up the goods. They wouldn't tell us what it was going to look like. It was still a surprise to us when we went to the show last year. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a carefully guarded secret.
Carefully guarded secret, always.
Did you hear about the Cape snafu in Vegas last year?
I did. I watched it happening. People were I walked in watching everybody redo the capes that were on the monkey to make sure that we had everybody's logo on there. So, that was fun to watch.
Well, there were some senior people that were involved in reattaching the capes to I don't know how many hundreds of monkeys. You're the VP of quality, Darlene. I mean,
Yeah.
I hope you were involved in that.
No, I actually walked in at the end because I had a meeting that I was going to. And then when I walked in, I had missed all the fun, but it was an all hands on deck situation.
All right. Well, we'll look forward to, I guess the first time we'll see it is out at Charlotte at Fastener Fair. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah, that's going to be, that'll be fun. That'll be our first time in Charlotte, of course, as Fastener Fair expands its reach. So, it'll be fun to see everybody out there in May.
I'll be looking forward to that. All right. A lot of people know that you came into LSG by way of Solution Industries. So you were over there for a few years and you're very good friends with the Riddells. John Riddell, of course, the previous owner of Solution Industries, one of the co-founders and all-around great guy out here in Northeast Ohio. And I am going to ask you before we wrap up this conversation, what do you hear about John and Shelley? Because I know a lot of people miss them at all the events.
I'm very fortunate to still stay in close contact with John and Shelley. And Shelley and I play golf in the summer. We play every Tuesday night. And we kind of travel around, and sometimes John joins us. It just kind of depends on what's happening. But we've been doing that for several years. So it's always fun to catch up with them. They are crazy with their grandkids, of course. They have so much energy going on in their house. So it's just fun always to be able to have an opportunity to catch those guys. So they are as good as they get. Love John and Shelley. Again, always just very fortunate to still stay in touch with them.
Oh, how cool. Now, I did a little fishing with John over the years, and took him out a few times, did some muskie fishing. Actually, we got a really nice muskie out on West Branch a few years back. And then we did some bass fishing as well. But I heard that he got himself a nice walleye rig after the whole acquisition. Did you ever get to go out on that?
I did. I was able to go out, went out one time to fish, and went out one time just for a casual boat ride to go to dinner. So very nice to, having that boat in Lorraine. It was very nice, and I know he enjoyed it very much.
Yeah, that's Lake Erie. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, it's like a religion here in Ohio, getting out there. So, well, I'm glad to hear that he's making good use out of all his free time and resources and so forth. And really, that's the culmination of a fastener life well lived in a lot of cases. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. We've been talking with Darlene Collis. She's the Vice President Quality over at LSG. That's LinFast Solutions Group. You know them, longtime partners of the podcast, friends of the podcast as well. Check out LinFast at linfastgrp.com. That's the website, linfastgrp.com. Of course, Darlene is everywhere all the time, so she's easy to find. I got her through LinkedIn. You can too. Darlene, great to talk to you again, as always.
Thank you, Eric. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Woman of the Year. Congratulations. All right. We'll be back, folks, with more Fully Threaded in just a moment.
Once you're in this industry, you're not getting out. Good thing there's Fully Threaded Radio. Talk radio for the fastener industry.
Stainless Dan here, coming to you from Star Stainless. From the beginning, Star has offered two major things to our customers. First, we stock a large diversified inventory of sizes, with inventory on hand so you can receive it right off the shelf. Second, we offer personal, friendly, efficient service from placing your order all the way to delivery. Star quality is more than products. It's simple. We're Star.
Brighton Best is proud to stand shoulder to shoulder with our trusted domestic partners, expanding our stainless offering with a full line of domestic ASTM F593 hex cap screws, 18 through 8, now in diameters from 1/4 inch to 7/8 of an inch, and lengths up to 7 inches. Tested, tried, and true, backed by American workmanship. These partnerships deliver quality you can trust, consistency you can count on, and domestic sourcing your customers will value. Brighton Best is investing in stainless and in the American manufacturers who help us keep our industry moving. Discover the strength of our domestic stainless lineup, including domestic stainless socket head cap screws, 18 through 8, and domestic stainless A2 hex cap screws. Brighton Best, your one-stop shop for all things stainless, powered by American Partnership. We are Brighton Best International, Inc.
Hey, this is Don Shan Fastener. No S on the end, guys. No S. Shan Fastener. You're listening to Eric and Brian. Over a decade. The Blowhorn. Fully Threaded Radio.
Just received another text message from Brian. They are currently on an island in the Nile River, it looks like. He certainly gets around. Don't worry, he'll be back for the next episode. But we're going to put this episode of Fully Threaded Radio to bed now. And speaking of well-traveled individuals, Darlene Collis with LSG gets around quite a bit too. Actually, we spoke to a lot of folks on the episode today who are well-seasoned travelers. I'd like to thank them all. Also including Anthony Krall with Birmingham Fastener. He joined Mike McNulty with Fastener Technology International magazine today on the Fastener News Report. Heidi Volltrauer, as we heard, she'll be setting off for Europe in the not-too-distant future. Always good to hear from her. And I forgot to mention at the top of the episode today, Marco Rodriguez with Cresa chimed in today as well. And of course, Carmen Vertullo had the Fastener Training Minute. Now, there's a guy who never stops moving. We need to do a segment with him one of these days where we let him riff on some of his travel stories. He's always got one in hand. Well, there are lots of stories to discuss in the fastener industry, and that's what we do here on the podcast. And it's all made possible by our partners. The title sponsors of Fully Threaded Radio are Brighton Best International, Tested, Tried, True, Brighton Best, Goebel Fasteners, Quality the First Time, Go Goebel, and Star Stainless. Right off the shelf, it's Star. Fully Threaded Radio is also sponsored by Buckeye Fasteners and the Ohio Nut and Bolt Company, BTM Manufacturing, Eurolink Fastener Supply Service, Endries International, Cressa, InSequel Software, Fastener Technology International, J-Line Franco, MW Components, Solution Industries, Volt Industrial Plastics, and Worth Industry USA. If you enjoyed the podcast and you listen on the Apple platform or Spotify or one of the other players that are out there, please drop us a rating and a review. It helps us. And I've been remiss all this time in asking you to do that, but it's a New Year's resolution to start building that part of it up as we move ahead. Before I get out of here, I want to mention that during the conversation with Darlene Collis, if it sounded like I got a little ornery on the subject of CBAM, it's because that is a subject that does really get under my skin. You know, one thing I do love about the fastener industry is that the commodities we deal with are, to a certain extent, they're quite definable. You know, you need a weld nut, you need a grade 5 weld nut. Well, you go to Buckeye Fasteners, for example. You can look at what that part is, you can specify it, and generally you can understand what it is or what it's supposed to be. And fortunately, in the industry, do business with people who are going to treat you squarely. The idea behind the whole carbon swapping scheme, in my view, is based on very, very poor evidence, with no upside that I can see, only lots of problems, including the bureaucratic overhead that Darlene's now involved in. And, you know, I'm not speaking for her or anybody else in particular on this. It's the way I see it. Went back in the archives and took a look at a debate on the great CO2 argument that was put on several years ago. I think, 10 years back now. It was the Heartland Institute, and you could see both sides present very clearly and in a very fair manner what they feel the real issues here are. And you can see for yourself how that turns out, and I'll put that link in the show notes. I think it's important to look at these things because we're traveling down a path here that does not fall into the well-traveled category that we'd all like to be on. There's a lot more to say on that, but we'll keep it predominantly fastener-related for the moment. Take a look at the show notes. Let me know what you think on that. Thanks again for listening to Fully Threaded Radio, everybody. It means a lot. Again, it's a rather raw way to start the year, but here we are. There are many things to feel grateful for and look ahead at. Brian will be back with us next episode, and we have John Zhu with Brighton Best International lined up to talk with McNulty next time. There's an example for you. All right, for the well-traveled Brian Musker, this is Eric Dudas. Get out there, sell some screws. We'll talk to you next time.
Back then, I took a look and see what could I be in, what kind of a business can I be in that the big guys aren't going to chew me up. And I saw that nobody was really concentrating on aluminum fasteners at the time. And Alcoa had like they had 20 distributors. But they told all those 20 guys they had to buy a certain amount of fasteners to be a distributor. So they all bought the same thing. So we walked in and they wouldn't give us the line. And so we bought all that inventory from all those distributors. And ultimately they went out of they didn't bother with them anymore. We took over the aluminum fastener business in the States here. So it's been good for us. It's a small business, but a good one.
Well, that's the important thing. So when I was talking with Tracy in Nashville and we cooked up this idea about getting you back onto the podcast, and by the way, I really do thank you for being here. You know, we communicate here and there. Of course, I work with you on the magazine a little bit, and right. I've been sort of badgering you to do this for a while. So thanks for finally jumping in. But Tracy was telling me about some of the amazing things that you did before you got into fastening. I mean, you've had several different careers. I wonder if you could just give a quick punch list on that, because I think it'll amaze people.
Well, you know, they all happened as I was in. I've been in the fastener business since 1954. And, I come out of the Navy, and I was actually going to make the Navy a career. And all my friends came home at the same time. We had some good parties. So I thought, well, let me get a job and see what happens. I applied for a job at Southern Screw Company. And the girl who interviewed me, she was assistant manager there. She's been my wife for 68 years.
How cool.
So we hooked up, got married, and it's been great. Good family. And they trained me at Southern Screw to run one of their 4 warehouses. But there was only 4 warehouses, and not a lot of warehouses opened up. So a lot of things I did after that, I did at the same time I was in the fastener industry. I just did them at nights and weekends, and so when I did that, and I was playing hockey at this rink, and it was going, the guy didn't want to own it anymore. He was going to go bankrupt. So we bought it. A couple of hockey players and myself bought it, and we ran it for 20 years, had one of the best hockey programs on the East Coast. You started 5 years old, you can play till you're 80, and we did, and it was great. A good story about that, though. We tried, we had, when we bought the business, we didn't have a lot of money, and we had to cut the ice. We had a Jeep and a blade, and it took us forever to cut the ice, and it wasn't great. The ice wasn't great afterwards. I called Frank Zamboni in California. I said, Frank, I got no money, but I need a Zamboni to make this thing work. Because every 2 hours you had to cut ice. And so he said, well, I'm coming to New York, and I'll let's talk. So I met him in New York and talked to him for about an hour and a half. And he sent us a free Zamboni.
Wow.
And he said, I'm going to make you I'm going to make a loan for you in the bank, but I'll pay the loan. And until you guys get established and you can pay the Zamboni off. And we kept that Zamboni for 20 years. The best thing we ever did, best thing he ever did. Ultimately, we paid it off, and he was a friend for a long time till he died. So, you can't run a Madison Square Garden didn't have a Zamboni. I had a Zamboni, and Madison Square Garden didn't have one. They had a union problem, but that was just, that was just one of the businesses that I was a policeman. I was a volunteer guy, in the town, a small town I lived in. And they came to us one day and said, we don't want to hire full-time guys. If you want to be a policeman and fill in, you're already trained. So I said, fine. So two other guys, myself, became regular policemen. Did it for about 8 or 9 years. So all my other things got a little too involved, and I had to drop out of it, but it was a good time for all those years. I'd work at 4 to 8 at night, 4 to 12, 12 to 8 in the morning, weekends. And so it was good. It was just small town, one cop on a desk, one or 2 cars on the road. And we did it for a long time. It was a lot of fun, and it was interesting. Met a lot of people. Sometimes not the kind of people you want to meet, but it was good, though. Yeah. So, I've been in a bunch of businesses. I started, I was a rep, and I didn't get a branch from Southern Screw Company. There was only 4, and I didn't get one. I saw that it wasn't gonna be for me. Then it would take too long, so I became a rep. And then I became a national rep. I had a national rep organization for years. And then 74, you were in the business in 1974, was the best year we ever had. 75 was the worst year we ever had. The country was in a recession. The fastener industry was in a depression. And so I had to close the national rep organization up because the companies didn't want to pay commission. A lot of companies went out at that time. They just couldn't sustain it, So I kept thinking, what am I going to do now? So around 75, 76, my sister-in-law, Mary Ann, who you might know, she became my partner in the magazine. I decided there was no magazine in the industry at the time, and we decided to publish a magazine. And so she and I got together, and we partnered up, and we started Link Magazine. And so we've been doing this is our 48th year publishing the magazine, and it's been good for us, and good for the industry. I know what the industry needs and what they're looking for. They're looking to train their people and get them more knowledge, and that's what we do. We try to provide that for them. So that's another thing we did. And then I saw the aluminum company in the 80s, and I decided to try that, and I built aluminum, which is still going pretty strong. And I bought a factory in Detroit, nut factory, Wolverine Nut, and I knew I could get orders. We had plenty of orders. Couldn't get anybody to work. The crew I had just were terrible. And they worked there before, I hired to work for me, and they just were not good workers. Couldn't hire anybody, and I just looked at it and said, "This is not good." So I closed it down. And then I bought I built another factory, stainless steel rod, threaded rod, and dowel pins. And that was going pretty good too. And then one day I could buy finished product for what I was paying for the wire. And, nobody wanted that product. All of a sudden, imports came in bad and they took over that business. So I had to close that factory. So there's been some not good things that over the years, I had to close different businesses out. The rink lasted 20 years, and politics in that town changed, and they didn't renew our lease, so we had to get out of that. And I ran another rink for another guy for a couple of years. So we've done a lot of things.